The bull had the Frisbee in his mouth like it was a cigar. Karen was screaming in a pitch only dogs could hear, and I was sitting on my porch sipping lemonade, honestly wondering if I should start selling tickets. If you'd told me a week earlier that my quiet little ranch would become the stage for a suburban turf war led by women in yoga pants, I'd have laughed, gone back to patching the barn roof, and called you dramatic. But there I was, watching a 2,000-pound bull gallop through my alfalfa like he'd been hired for a stunt scene, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the universe grin at me like, "Oh, you wanted peace? Cute, here's comedy instead." It started the previous Sunday morning, the kind of morning ranch folks live for: cool air, birds doing their annoying little concerts, that soft hush you get right before the sun starts making everything look honest. Then slam, 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 SUV doors all in sync, like some kind of beige metal buffalo herd migrating to destroy my sanity. From my porch I counted 5 vehicles pulled up along my fence line, glittery and pristine, parked like they owned the place. And the gate to my north pasture, my locked gate, was hanging open. I remember just standing there for a second, holding my glass, thinking either I'm about to meet the dumbest thieves alive, or the HOA finally evolved into a new species. I walked down the gravel path, boots crunching, already rehearsing the speech in my head, the one that starts with "you're trespassing," and ends with "smile for the deputy." Except when I got to the field, my brain kind of short-circuited, because right in the middle of my alfalfa, my livestock feed, my money, my work, was Karen Whitmore. Karen, HOA president, self-declared queen of the cul-de-sac. The kind of woman who says things like community standards with the same tone most people say medical emergency. She was twirling, actually twirling, like a happy kid at summer camp, and she tossed a bright yellow Frisbee across my pasture like it was a park on a Sunday brochure. "Come on, Sharon, run for it," she sang out, giggling, while a woman in neon pink sneakers sprinted after it like she was auditioning for a yogurt commercial. I blinked so hard my eyelashes probably filed a complaint. "Karen," I called, and my voice came out dry enough to start a brush fire. I didn't know my private property was on the HOA activity calendar. She turned around with this sweet, composed smile, like someone who just backed into your mailbox and wants you to apologize for parking it there. "Oh, Jake," she said, "we just needed some open space for a little friendly exercise. You've got so much land you barely use this part." I took a step closer, jaw tight, and you know that feeling when you're trying to stay calm, but your body is already warming up for a fight? That was me. "It's a ranch, Karen. This part is where I feed my livestock. Also, let's keep it simple. It's behind a locked gate." "Oh, was it locked?" she said, all innocent. "Funny it was open when we got here." "Right. And my chickens volunteer for rotisserie duty." I watched the Frisbee roll toward my tractor, thunk against the metal, and drop into the dirt like it belonged there. That tractor costs more than Karen's entire wardrobe, and, based on what I was seeing, more than her grip on reality. I really tried to be reasonable. "Listen," I said, "if you want to play Frisbee, go to the park. You're trespassing." She did the little head tilt, like I was the one being dramatic. "Jake, you're being unnecessarily territorial. The HOA charter clearly allows shared access to non-commercial green space." I actually laughed, like a short, sharp sound that surprised me, because it was either laugh or start yelling. "Karen, I'm not in the HOA. I refused when you people tried to rope me in 5 years ago, remember?" Her smile flickered, just a tiny bit, like a cheap light bulb on its last day. "Well, you're adjacent to the HOA, and that's basically the same thing." "No," I said, "that's like saying you can use somebody's bathroom because you live on the same planet." Behind her, her little crew started gathering, water bottles, sun hats, that whole Lost Beekeeper vibe. 8 grown adults standing on my land, like they were at a picnic. I could call the sheriff. I could put up more cameras. I could chain the gate with something that requires a NASA badge to open. Or, I glanced toward the south paddock. Buster. Now Buster isn't your average bull. I raised him from a calf after his mama rejected him, which makes you feel protective in this weird, reluctant way, like, great, now I'm emotionally attached to something that could flip my truck. And he's smart. Too smart. He knows the sound of my engine. He knows how to pop open the feed bin with his horns. One time he dragged a lawn chair 50 feet into the shade, so he could nap like a retired uncle at a cookout. But the biggest thing about Buster, he hates Frisbees. I'm not kidding. He has a personal vendetta against anything disc-shaped, likely because 2 summers ago, a drone went down in his field carrying a pizza box, don't ask. And ever since then, anything that flies and spins is basically an enemy aircraft to him. So I didn't argue with Karen anymore. I didn't threaten. I didn't plead. I just turned around and walked back to the house. She probably thought she'd won. What I was really doing was opening my phone and pulling up the live feed from my pasture camera, because if you're going to trespass, at least do it in 1080p. Next morning, like clockwork, they were back. More SUVs. More shrieking laughter. More friendly exercise on my land. Karen launched that same bright yellow Frisbee, and it floated up, catching the sun like it was showing off. That's when I opened the southern gate. Buster didn't charge out like a lunatic. No, he walked. Slow. Deliberate. Like a heavyweight stepping into the ring. Massive shoulders rolling, head low, calm as a man who knows exactly how this ends. His eyes locked on that Frisbee. Karen noticed him about 2 seconds too late. Jake?" she called, suddenly sounding like she'd swallowed a battery. Is that safe?" "Well," I called back, "depends who you're asking. Buster thinks Frisbees are a threat to national security." Then the Frisbee dropped. Buster bolted. And the whole scene just exploded. Screams. Feet pounding dirt. One woman ran straight into a folding chair and did a full somersault that ended with grass in her mouth. 2 people sprinted for their cars like the doors were going to teleport them to safety. Karen held her ground for about 3 heroic seconds. Then she turned and ran for the fence, shrieking like someone had lit her yoga pants on fire. Here's the thing, Buster never touched anybody. Not once. He galloped right through the chaos, snapped that Frisbee out of the air like a dog catching a treat, and trotted off with it like he'd just won the Super Bowl. I swear on my truck title he paused and looked at me like he was proud. When it was over, the field was empty again. Dust, tire tracks, one abandoned water bottle with a monogrammed K, and my bull under the oak tree chewing plastic like it owed him money. I lifted my lemonade like a toast, peace, personal property rights, and bulls with strong opinions. I thought that would be the end of it. Oh no. That video hit the internet before lunch. Apparently one of Karen's friends filmed the whole thing. The bull charge, the screams, Karen jumping a folding chair like she was in the Olympics. Somebody slapped dramatic music on it, added slow motion, and by sunset Frisbee Bull was trending in 3 states. My phone buzzed nonstop. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years were texting laughing emojis like we were best friends. I didn't post it, but that didn't stop Karen from storming up my driveway later that day like she was marching into a courtroom. "You set me up," she screamed, face red, hair frizzed like she'd been dragged through a hay bale. I leaned on my porch post, took a slow sip, and let her words hang there. "Karen," I said, "I didn't set you up. You wandered onto a ranch, played Frisbee in a bull's grazing field, and got surprised when a bull acted like a bull. You released him," she shouted, pointing toward the pasture like she expected me to apologize for owning livestock. "Correct," I said. "On my land, where he lives, which you weren't supposed to be on." She started pacing, doing that tight little rage walk people do when they can't find a manager to yell at. "This is harassment, negligence, assault with a deadly horn." I almost laughed. Almost. But I didn't. The best way to beat Karen-type people is to stay calm and let them drown in their own drama. The next day I got a formal letter from the HOA Safety and Recreation Subcommittee, because apparently that's a thing adults do when they get embarrassed. According to them, my bull was now classified as a roaming hazard and a dangerous attraction. They demanded I keep Buster leashed during daylight hours and install a 6-foot privacy fence to prevent unintended engagements. I framed the letter and hung it in the barn bathroom. That's where it belonged. Things escalated. Karen organized a community unity Frisbee festival, right near the property line, like a petty little protest with snacks. She even ordered cookies from a bakery, tiny iced cookies with cartoon bulls crossed out in red. Like Buster was a smoking habit. So I did the only responsible thing a grown man can do in 2026, I made my bull a fan page. My niece helped me set it up, Buster the Bull, defender of ranch rights, and we posted photos of him peacefully munching hay, staring into sunsets like a rugged cowboy, standing next to a sign that said trespassers will be frisbeed. People loved it. Someone mailed him a cowboy hat. A vet clinic offered to sponsor his feed. The local feed store started selling novelty Frisbees shaped like bull horns. Karen, meanwhile, held an emergency HOA session to ban animal influencers from misrepresenting suburban life. That was the official wording. Unofficially, she was losing control of the story, and it was driving her insane. Then she did what Karen always does when she can't win socially. She tried to win legally. A civil complaint showed up taped to my gate one morning, fluttering in the wind like a passive-aggressive flag. Reckless endangerment. Emotional distress. Willful misuse of livestock. Misuse. Like I had Buster juggling or performing flamenco for tips. I called my cousin Dave, part-time attorney, full-time conspiracy theorist, the kind of man who sues people like it's cardio. He read it, laughed so hard he wheezed, and said, "She's suing you because your bull was being a bull? Oh, Jake, we're gonna have fun." Fun wasn't my word for it, but Dave filed a motion to dismiss, pulled screenshots of Karen bragging about her Frisbee events, built a timeline, and basically turned her case into a sad little scrapbook of trespassing. And then, here's where the twist hit. Karen tried one last ambush. The morning before our court hearing, I woke up to vehicles idling at the edge of my property. I looked out and saw an official county zoning truck clipboard guy reflective vest. And Karen, standing beside him, pointing at my field like she was directing a low-budget action movie. I threw on jeans and boots, marched down the path, ready to be polite through clenched teeth. Then the inspector turned, and my jaw actually dropped. "Jake Colton," she said, raising an eyebrow. It was Leslie Hart. We went to high school together. She was 2 years ahead of me, captain of the 4-H club, and once punched a guy for mocking her prize goat. Tough, fair, zero tolerance for nonsense. Karen blinked like her brain just crashed. "You two know each other?" Leslie glanced at Karen, then at my pasture, then at the open gate Karen's crew had once wandered through, and you could see it on her face. She was already tired of being used as a weapon. "I know this ranch," Leslie said, flipping her clipboard. "His livestock is registered properly. Fencing meets code. Pastures are clearly marked. So what exactly is the problem?" Karen launched into this dramatic retelling, rampage, terror, near-death experience. And Leslie just listened, calm as a judge, while the wind pushed through the grass like it was eavesdropping. Finally, Leslie cut her off. "Ms. Whitmore, this looks like a personal vendetta dressed up as public safety. I'm closing the complaint. The HOA doesn't have jurisdiction here, and this ranch meets legal requirements." Karen's face went pale, then red, then pale again, like her emotions were buffering. "But he made the bull go after us," she insisted. Leslie paused, deadpan. "Did he or did the bull react to a group of people entering his field without permission and throwing brightly colored objects at high speed?" Karen looked like she'd swallowed vinegar. Leslie turned to me, gave this little half-smile. "Good to see you again, Jake. Tell your bull he's got fans at the county office." And she left, just like that, while Karen stood there, stripped of her favorite thing in the world, authority. That night, the HOA meeting was packed. Standing room only. People came like they were attending a live show, because word traveled fast. Karen's zoning stunt failed, the lawsuit was crumbling, and everyone could smell the end. Karen tried to start a speech about order and dignity, voice cracking like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror all afternoon. Halfway through, one of her own board members, Greg, a quiet accountant who looks like he builds birdhouses for fun, stood up with his phone and said, "Karen, was it dignity when you ordered cookies with bulls crossed out in icing?" The room erupted. And then it happened. Years of pent-up frustration spilled out. People brought up arbitrary fines, nasty emails, petty power trips, the time she threatened someone over a rosemary bush. One by one, the room turned on her, not because they suddenly loved me or Buster, but because they finally saw what she'd been doing to everyone, using rules like weapons, treating neighbors like subjects. A vote of no confidence got called. It passed loud. Karen sat there stunned as her clipboard got taken, her title stripped, her special parking spot reassigned like it was nothing. No thunder. No big speech. Just deflation. I slipped out early. Not to be noble, honestly, I just didn't want to push my luck. Later that night, I walked the fence line with Buster beside me, moonlight painting the pasture silver. He snorted once, like he was satisfied, like he'd done his job. And that's when the lesson hit me, quiet and sharp. People think power looks like loud voices and official letters and committees with fancy names, but most of the time, power is just someone betting you won't push back. Someone counting on you to stay tired, stay polite, stay small. Karen didn't have some magical authority. She had momentum and fear, and a whole neighborhood trained to avoid conflict. All it took to break the spell was one bull, one camera, and a few people finally saying out loud what they'd been swallowing for years. A couple weeks later, things calmed down. The HOA emails stopped. The flyers disappeared. The neighborhood felt lighter, like it finally exhaled. Karen tried to reinvent herself. She even waved at me one morning, cheerful in a way that felt unnatural, like seeing a shark doing yoga. She sent an apology letter too, handwritten, with a voucher to a steakhouse, like she was making peace with Buster, which is hilarious because Buster would eat that voucher if I let him. Then I saw her new sign by the edge of her backyard, right up against my pasture. Coming soon, Zen Zone Yoga Studio Relaxation with a view. And that view was basically my ranch. That's when I did my final little move, not loud, not cruel, just clean. I looked up the property records and found the strip of land she was planning to build on wasn't finalized yet. Still pending deed transfer. Still available. So that afternoon, I went to the county clerk's office with my checkbook and the most charming smile I could scrape together. By 5 o'clock, I owned the land. Next morning, I planted my own sign right beside hers, handmade, bright as day. Future site of Buster's Coop and Crow Cafe, fresh eggs, loud roosters, no yoga. By lunch, her sign was gone. That evening, Karen showed up at my gate, arms folded, expression unreadable. You bought it, she said flatly. Legally, I replied, and ethically. You don't even have chickens. Not yet. She stared at me for a long time then. To my surprise, she laughed. Not that fake, sharp laugh she used to do when someone got fined. This was tired, real, half-resigned. Like someone finally realizing they aren't the main character in everyone else's story. You're impossible, she said. Accurate. And she walked away. That weekend I threw a barbecue, nothing fancy, just brisket, lawn chairs, kids running around, neighbors who'd never spoken to me before showing up with side dishes and curiosity. I even set up a Frisbee station at the far end of the pasture with cones and a sign that said, "Play at your own risk, bull has priorities." Buster stood by the fence like a bouncer, proud as ever. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like the land was mine again, not just legally, emotionally. So here's what I want to ask you, because I genuinely don't think there's one easy answer. When someone abuses power for years, and you finally get a chance to hit back, where's the line between justice and revenge? If you were in my boots, would you have done the same thing, or would you say I went too far buying that land and planting that sign? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me what you think is right, what's petty, what's fair, or share a time you dealt with someone like Karen, the kind of person who thinks rules only matter when they benefit them. I'm curious, because out here, I learned something the hard way: karma doesn't always come with lightning. Sometimes it shows up on 4 hooves, chewing a yellow Frisbee like it's the sweetest taste of justice you've ever seen.